meeting to order on Monday, August 21st, 2017. Determination of quorum and that the agenda was properly posted. It was. At this time, I'll call for nominations of Chairman Pro Tem.
I'll then nominate John.
I'll second it.
Okay.
You're last to arrive, so it's tradition.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
All in fit, yeah. So we have a nomination and a second.
Yep. Any other nominations? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right, we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 5 is discuss and consider the minutes for the last meeting on August 7th. Thank you.
I move to approve.
We got a motion
Second?
and a second. All those in favor? I'm sorry, any discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. New business. Discussing,
You skipped over public appearances.
I'm sorry,
But I think all of them are for Shady Grove.
Shady Grove.
So,
Oh.
It's okay, John, I feel the pressure over here.
If you just heard.
All right. So I apologize. We have item 4, public appearances, public's opportunity to speak on any subject not on the agenda. And we have 3 folks here to speak on the same item, the Shady Grove neighborhood. So I don't know if we want to. Oh, we do have it on there. Oh, we do have it on here, sorry. All right, then we go on to new business. So I skipped number 5 because covered it already. And this is discuss and consider operator licenses, applications, licenses for July 2017 through June 2018 for 4 individuals. Any issues with this, Chief, with these 4 folks?
I can't get my iPad to open up, so someone that has access to it is going to
there
have to.
were no issues.
There were no?
There were no.
Okay.
Okay, so there's no issues from the police departments. You guys want to take these all together? or-
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
I'll nominate.
All
Do we
right.
nominate to take them all together?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, I second.
All right, so we have a motion and second to consider, to grant the operator licenses for Nicole, Sean, Gretchen, and Tara, as listed in the agenda. Any further discussion? Having heard none, then those in favor?
Say aye.
Aye.
Good, been here through this routinely. Any abstentions or? All right, motion carries. Item 7, reports from village boards, commissions, and committees. Planning Commission.
The items that were discussed at Plan Commission are on the agenda this evening.
Okay. So then, item, you want to, I guess we'll take them one by one. So then, first one, item 7A, is discuss and consider a request from Monona Grove Development, Inc. for approval of a preliminary plat for proposed Shady Grove subdivision located on 2863 Highway BB.
We have Jessica Vaughn and Robert Proctor here to represent the applicant.
Okay.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jessica Vaughn. I'm from JAC Professional Services, and I'm representing Monona Grove Development Company, as well as my compadre here, Robert Proctor. I'm just going to walk you through the subdivision. I'm assuming everybody has a copy of the proposed preliminary plat here in their packet, so I'll focus this one on the audience. That works?
Yep.
All right. So before the board this evening, we're asking for approval and the preliminary plat for the Shady Grove subdivision. The subdivision is comprised of 62 single-family lots, which are primarily located in the central area of the subdivision here, as well as the east, and then along the south property line. We also have 6 multifamily houses up along the north here, and then a larger multifamily parcel here on lot 7, which is the corner of Bus Road and Cottage Grove Road. Public improvements that are associated with the subdivision include 2 outlots for stormwater management, outlot 1 here and outlot 2 down in the south. We have a parkland dedication, which is roughly ½ acre down in the southeast corner of the subdivision. And then outlet number 4, which is a lift station for sanitary sewer. And finally, outlet number 5, which runs along the east property line and then off to the west, will be home to the 60-foot wide Koch gas pipeline easement. We are also, as part of the subdivision, including the extension of Fundamental Way as a north-south collector street. We have Bus Road that continues to the south and then into the neighborhood. And finally, we also are including a multi-use path along Fundamental Way on its west side of the street. So that pretty much sums up the subdivision and its public improvements. I'm available to answer questions associated with those, but I'll let Robert talk a little bit more about our public process.
Yep. So far up to this point, there's been quite a bit of interest regarding from the neighboring neighborhood, and a number of comments at public hearings and also an open house we held. And so taking those comments, I tried to distill them and give you our response to them. And so the first comment that started coming at the beginning was that people in the neighboring subdivision had no idea that this was coming and that they hadn't been consulted. And we believe that's an unfair criticism, aimed at the village at that, because if you go through the process, this preliminary plat is the very end of the process. The village has been doing planning for over a decade. And if you go back to the comprehensive plan, the comprehensive land use plan is right behind you. It shows this area as part of the village and as a mixed residential neighborhood. So that plan has been amended, I believe, 11 times since it was originally adopted. That's 11 public hearings, that's 11 notices going out to the public. At the next step, the village decided that to take the next step, they were going to annex this area of land into the urban service area. The village spent significant resources along with the developer to go to the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission and present it there, where it was noticed and a public hearing was held, and a commission made up of members of the Towns Association, of the appointees by the county and appointees by the cities and villages and the city of Madison, all reviewed it, voted on it, and then it went to the DNR, and the DNR decided that it would approve it as being consistent water quality. We also then did an annexation, which at the point of the annexation, it was put into the official newspaper. It was publicly noticed. There was a hearing at the Planning Commission that was noticed, a public hearing, and then it also came to the board. At which point we came back with our preliminary plat, which would be the next step. And we came with a concept plan to the Planning Commission, which held a public hearing or took public comment from everyone. After that, we came forward with the preliminary plat itself, which was again noticed, and there was a public hearing. Subsequent to that, based on the recommendation of the Planning Commission, we held an open house, an informational open house, so people could come in and comment on the proposal. And we held that. We also offered to meet with anybody that wanted to, and I believe that the village is keeping a list of everybody that has expressed interest in the project, so they all get notice. So that's where we're at tonight, is now for the board to review the preliminary plat. And so to round up kind of that point, is that when the original complaints, and some of them made them into the paper, that this kind of sprung out of nowhere, we think that's very unfair. It's been really, this is the very end of 14 years, or 11 separate comprehensive plan amendments. There was lots of times for people to comment, and also in the preliminary plat process. One significant benefit of this subdivision will be the significant tax base increase. This will, in round numbers, will be a $24 million project when it's completely built out. That'll be one of the largest tax bases that the village has approved in its history. So it's a significant tax base coming to the city, a tax base that will go both to, both to the village and to the school district. And so we believe that provides a very good benefit for especially a nice compact subdivision where we believe that the services will be reasonable that the village needs to provide. Another very big topping point was the Monona Grove School District and the issue of whether or not there's an issue with overcrowding. A lot of the comments were based on anecdotal stories and kind of somebody talked to the school district. We don't know how to answer that other than a number of things happened. First, the village went out and asked the school district if this is an issue. And the school district superintendent specifically responded that Shady Grove will not negatively impact the district's ability to educate students at the present level of quality. Further, he responded that the addition of approximately 75 students, which is what the school district, I suppose their analytics predict for this subdivision, would have a minimal impact on current school enrollment. The superintendent also stated that Shady Grove is accounted for in the district's enrollment and facility planning efforts, and that the district benefits financially from moderate, steady growth of in-district students. And that's because you get more state funding if they're in-district students as opposed to out-of-district students in open enrollment. Most of that information from the superintendent comes from the fact that the school district has a long-range facilities planning committee. It prepared a report. It sent the report to the village. I believe it was included in your materials. And that study was done by Vanderwall and Associates, a very well-renowned planner who predicts how much the village is going to grow and how many students are going to come from that, and by Epstein Ewan Architects, very renowned architects, and from the C.G. Schmidt Construction Company, a well-known construction company, and then the entire committee of members that were appointed. So as far as analytics go, as much as you can predict and as much studying as you can do, the school district has done it and said that they plan for, expect, and do not see any negative impact from the Shady Grove development. I'd also note that one of the issues is whether or not the Grumman School, GDS, where I have a daughter at, so I'm very familiar of it, is whether it's above its fundamental capacity, and what does that mean? Well, if you read the report that was prepared by the school district, fundamental capacity means 80% of the actual design capacity. The design capacity is if you had 100% utilization of the rooms, what would be the capacity for the school? The reason they use an 80% number is because you have certain rooms and so forth that, if you have a teacher, there may only be 6 hours of the day that there are actually classes in there. The other 2 hours may be that the teacher prepares during that time. So it's at 80% of the design capacity. So when the school district responded, what does fundamental capacity mean, and that they're at capacity, it means they needed to rearrange, to reutilize the rooms to deal with the fact that they're right at capacity and sometimes a little over. And this really makes common sense when you think about the fact when you plan your facilities, you don't wait till you're one student over and then do nothing and build a new facility. Eventually you overbuild your facilities, you work your way into them, and then you keep planning, and it's not always going to line up right. If you read the facilities plan, you'll see that the high school is underutilized right now by a significant amount in percentage-wise, and I don't want to speak too much, but so it shows how they don't actually grow together, and we know that the facilities plan has taken that into shape. The reason I spend so much time on that issue, much like the notice one, that seemed to be the biggest issue that kept coming up over and over again, and school districts are always a big issue, but I think that at this point, the best information that this board has to rely on is the school district, and the school district from the superintendent has officially said that they plan for this and this doesn't have a negative impact. Another issue that we heard many questions about from the neighboring district was water quality. Most of the, the abutting neighborhood. The abutting neighborhood is in the town, and so it is on well and has septic systems. This development obviously is in the village, so it's going to be connected to village sewer and village water. It will have no effect at all on the wells or on the septic. And that, when it went to the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission, which I spoke to earlier, that entire review, and that by the Department of Natural Resources, is looking at the Dane County Water Quality Plan to make sure that the stormwater and groundwater impacts of this development are consistent with that plan and won't have a negative impact on the rest of the community. And the village engineers put forward that application and believed that that was the case. Our engineers worked on it with it and also believed that was the case. The professional engineers at the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission reviewed it and recommended approval, and the DNR has the duty to independently review that, and they found the same thing. So you have a very vigorous and rigorous review of water quality issues and stormwater issues in order for them to sign off and say that it's okay for the village to add this into the urban service area and to this whole area, and to add this particular subdivision to its sewer and water facilities. Another issue that was raised at the Planning Commission was by the public was the existing streams and environmental corridors. And the environmental streams and or the existing streams and corridors are covered by Department of Natural Resources regulations. They are considered sensitive areas with setbacks. Both the plat notes where they are and that there are setbacks that can't be disturbed. We've included a deed restriction in the covenants that notifies people and instructs them that they have to comply with both the village and state law. That covenant in the deed restrictions cannot be amended or changed without the approval of the village. And so, one, by law they're not allowed to, and two, by the plat notifying them and putting it as a restriction in the covenants, they're not allowed to interfere with considered the sensitive areas. In essence, there's a setback that says you can't grade or build in the setback area without the approval of the village or the DNR. Finally, we think this is a really, really good thing for the village. It creates housing. There is not a lot of single-family lots in Dane County. The village is a growing community. During the Planning Commission meeting, I thought that Commissioner Jennifer Pickle made just a great point about Cottage Grove being at its heart a welcoming community, that she started in a renting a side-by-side duplex, then she built one, then she built her home, and she sits on the Planning Commission. This is a growing community with growing families, people who will decide to live in Cottage Grove in an apartment, have a family, and hopefully build a house in Shady Grove one day and move on. And this is a product that doesn't just increase the tax base, it appeals to both the single-family home and the multifamily. It appeals to the different people in Cottage Grove at different parts in their life. It could be seniors that are down, or retirees that are downsizing, or it could be young millennials looking to rent before they build or buy. And so it's a product that its time has come, and it's the culmination of a long-term planning by the village. And so we're really excited about it. We're requesting that you approve it tonight, or at least approve the preliminary plat.
Sure.
Okay, can we have staff reports then?
Should have a couple documents in your packet, the original staff report from the Plan Commission, and then also a village action report. The village action report lists the approval conditions as they were approved at the Plan Commission meeting. There were a few tweaks made during the course of that meeting. So I'll go through the conditions that are in the village action report. Number one, that all required improvements as described by Article 8 of the subdivision ordinance are detailed and located per the ordinance. Number 2, the elevation contours at intervals of no less than 2 feet need to be added to the preliminary plat. The third one is to provide a draft of legal instruments and rules for the proposed homeowners association, including a maintenance plan for Outlot 5. That maintenance plan has been addressed. You should also have in your packet a revised, amended version of the restrictive covenants that reflect that change.
That's the coal pipeline.
Yes.
Should be noted, that's an existing coke pipeline, that's not an easement granted to do it.
Number 4, provide the village with contact info for the representative of the homeowners association and keep that information up to date with us in the future. Number 5, we're not talking about zoning yet, that's another approval process that'll happen later on, but we at least suggested that for Lot 7, they could consider neighborhood business zoning. Number 6, eliminate the sidewalk on the west side of Bus Road to discourage pedestrian activity near the cemetery. And then also, the applicant shall install a 4-foot tall chain link fence along the east property line adjacent to the cemetery prior to the road opening for traffic. Number 7, payment of fee in lieu of parkland dedication shall be required for all units not accounted for through actual dedicated parkland. Our Park and Rec Committee reviewed this. They requested a half-acre park just large enough for a tot lot. So the land not accounted for in that dedication would be given to the village as a fee. Number 8 was to amend the draft restrictive covenants to better address the protection and retention of existing trees. And at the Plan Commission meeting, it was suggested that the village would sign off on the removal of any existing tree larger than 18 inches in diameter. There's language again in the amended covenants dealing with that. And I think we actually tweaked it once more since then, directing those to my attention and not to the Parks Director. Number 9, provide the DNR determination regarding status of the drainage way navigability. We have since received that, and that should be in the packet. The DNR ruled that the 2 drainage ways are not navigable, which means the associated environmental corridor will have to be a minimum 75 feet wide. And prior to us signing off on the preliminary plat, those will need to be shown on the plat. Number 10 was to provide a deed restriction for any private lot traversed by an environmental corridor. Number 11, edit the deed restrictions to include a section that may only be amended with village approval, specifically including the treatment of trees and environmental corridors. Again, that was reflected in the amended covenants that are in the packet. And the 12th one was the applicant shall hold a neighborhood meeting prior to the appearance at the village board meeting. As Robert mentioned, that was held last Thursday as an open house. It's a series of engineering conditions as well. I don't know if Mike, you want to come up and talk about those?
Sure. Well, in the preliminary plat, we just had some pen and ink on the bearings and dimensions on the plat to match all the courses. The contours will be turned on for the preliminary plat for the final recordable sign document. And that we just recommended that the street names be brought forth on this so that it's just easier to coordinate utilities and everything. No length, invert for Bus Road, I guess. We have some minor changes they're going to make with the T intersection for the long term that may head west in the future as Bus Road extends in. And the engineering plans now reflect that. The lot summary should state which lots are anticipated for multifamily. And I think we already had the comment on parkland dedication. We recommend removing overhead lines that cross Cottage Grove Road, both within the plat and crossing the Cottage Grove Road. And there's one power pole between the cemetery and the dedication for Bus Road. That may be actually within the dedication that should be relocated. Remove improperly abandoned wells and septic systems that were on the site, and provide the village with the closeout documents for that. For the master site plan, we recommend that the bike path along Fundamental Way be on the west side, and then the new engineering plans have that corrected. The mass grading plan has also been updated to allow for conservancy of trees and had been reduced. So our first comment for mass grading plan has been corrected with the engineering submittal. They'll complete an erosion control checklist and land disturbance permit prior to land disturbance. They'll provide an opinion of probable costs for the stormwater management and erosion control, which is used as a surety during construction of those elements, but we'll also have a surety in the developer's agreement for the public improvements. Disturbance of the area is greater than 1 acre, so the site will require a NOI permit, grading permit with the DNR. Storm sewer needs to consider the connection with Cottage Grove Road at both Fundamental Way and Bus Road. Looks like just from the contours on the mass grading plan that a retaining wall would be required on the south side of the bike path along Cottage Grove Road east of Fundamental Way. And we'll be working with Public Works Committee on that extension of Cottage Grove Road and how that will shape out. The master utility plan, the water main will be extended along the limits of Street B. And that was just something for future connections to the west. The village will evaluate the extension of sewer and water on Cottage Grove Road. And we'll need a pipe slope for future gravity sewer along what's shown as kind of a drainage way near the lift station heading to the south plat line for future gravity hookup. Storm sewers in the street will be reinforced concrete pipe. Storm sewer end walls will also be reinforced concrete. The water main can be either ductile iron or CPVC, which is being added to the village's standard specs. And got that comment for the capped dry pipe for sewer. We'll be developing and getting a plan from the engineering team on this for the utility crossings for lighting and electrical as they become available before a land disturbance is granted. Street lighting will be a LED luminaire supplied by Alliant Energy as lease lighting. Street cross sections, I think we've got that now. A bike path on Fundamental Way has been corrected, although the typical section is needed to be updated to that. And then we have several comments on stormwater management regarding the modeling, and that'll be cleared as part of the final engineering approval before land disturbances is permitted.
And this was approved 5-0 at the Plan Commission.
Okay. All right, then, thank you. We have 3 folks here that also would like to speak to the board about this development. Thank you, both. I won't take them in any particular order, but on top here, I've got Stephen Bork. Stephen, do you want to speak?
Hello, my name is Steve Bork. We are landowners to the south of the development. And I don't want to be a stick in the mud and turn people away, but I feel as though this development is not going to help that much. I think what we need is we need businesses here first to support people moving in here. And another issue I have is the water as a runoff, and there is just way too many houses thinking to have this water run. And I know what it's all about, because Meadow Grove, when that came in, it's a lot less houses, but I get water like you wouldn't believe. And I know there's more management now with, I call them frog ponds, but I don't know, that's my concern of all this runoff. And basically, I think it's a bedroom community. I don't care what anybody says. I've lived here all my life. And I see we need businesses here, not just building more houses and schools. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Next to Charles Roberts.
I'm Charles Roberts. I live at 4364 Vilas Road, and if you follow the environmental corridor, follow the stream bed down, it goes across my property and through a cement culvert below Vilas Road. If you picture it, if you've been on the golf course, it's right by the third tee in the golf course. Now, a couple of things I want to touch on is I'm a nature guy, so I'm going to talk about what I know about, which is the environment. And I'm not concerned about people moving into Cottage Grove. My family moved in 1951, and we were newcomers then, and we still always joked about being newcomers into the 80s. So I'm fine with other people moving here. The way I see it, 12,000 years ago there was a glacier here, and gradually when that had left, the Mother Nature developed a plant community that is pretty much probably the same, well, that lasts several thousand years as it is today. The tenants at the White Farmhouse, used to be C.J. Vale's property, they let me walk down there in July, and I took my camera along, and wanted to see what was still there, because I played there and hunted squirrels there, did all that stuff when I was a kid. And most of the people I talked to, most of the guys I've talked to from Cottage Grove, they've all done the same thing. Wandered around back in there, enjoyed the woods. But what I found in late July was there's some nice trees back there, but there's also an understory of some nice plants. There's several nice patches of ferns. Jack in the Pulpit was still there. It was too late in July to see them, but I suspect in May there'll also be mayflowers and columbines a little later. And why that's important is how that all that stuff relates to the trees there in the plant community. I also saw some nice bur oak tree, cherry trees, hackberry trees. Somebody told me there's still some nice maples back in there. My concern is this development. I'm not saying it's, well, anyway, it will basically destroy that community. I give credit to the people that are standing up for the trees, the 18-inch requirement, all that stuff. I'm happy to see that. But what it will do, the development would do, is destroy basically it's a woods, It's been building there for 10,000 years. Previous farmers, there's been people in this area since 1834. So far, everybody saw it fit to keep that woods. And I think it should be, keep it as parkland. That's my other concern is the stormwater. I'm probably the world's foremost expert on the stormwater that comes down that way. I've watched it since I was 50, in 1951. Sometimes where it goes underneath Vilas Road there, stormwater, snow melt in the spring, it can be 30 yards wide. I was caught up in one. I almost went through the culvert one time when I was a kid. I mean, there is a strong current there sometimes. Usually, like actually when I went through there in July, it was 3 or 4 days after a rainstorm. It was still wet. There's still very small puddles of water in the stream bed. Anyway, my concern is it would be hard to predict how much water will be coming through there. I understand there's going to be settlement ponds or something, engineering. What I think you should do is vote no on this and honor Mother Nature, what's already there, leave it there. I also respect what you're doing by the cemetery, although I wish it would be a little farther. I've visited the cemetery, the Cottage Grove Cemetery by the new apartment house. I won't go into it, but it's not very pleasant to visit your parents' grave there next to the apartment house, when previously it was a nice little woods. That's mostly what I have to say. I guess my other concern, hopefully someone else will talk about, is the lot size, especially along the coal pipeline area. I've talked to some of the neighbors there, and they say, well, okay, their lot is this wide, and with Shady Grove, there'll be 2 lots, maybe 2 and a partial other lot in back of where they're at. So I would think that as a community, it would be a wiser decision to leave things more like they have been. And the other thing, my last remark is, reading in the paper, the Chamber of Commerce is developing a branding for Cottage Grove. Saying, what is it about Cottage Grove that would attract people? And I'm thinking, okay, you drive through Sun Prairie, up by Costco up there, there's a lot of cement, a lot of blacktop, apartment houses. Here we'll have smaller units, but there's a CVS across the street. When the bike riders come through there, and they come through pretty heavy on the weekends, they go down Vilas Road. They don't go down Cottage Grove Road. And this is the last remaining green spot, the last remaining woods between, say, Vilas Hope Road and anything down to Main Street. So that's what I think. I would vote no. Ask you to vote no. So, thank you.
Thanks, Charles.
Thank you.
All right, Joseph Byrne.
Good evening. My name is Joe Byrne. I'm an attorney with the law firm Boardman & Clark, and my law firm is retained by numerous of the residents surrounding the property to look at their various legal options and the issues surrounding Shady Grove. They've got serious concerns about both the development as it sits today and the process that we've taken to get here. Shady Grove is going to be on the gateway to the village. It's going to be the farthest west subdivision. It's going to set the tone for what people see when they come into this town. You guys have got one chance to get it right, and if you don't, it's going to turn out similar to what we've got on Highway N. I don't know how many people come into my town, and I live in Cottage Grove, by the way, and said that Highway N, all those duplexes that back up along Highway N, what was the board thinking when they approved that? So now we're going to be along Cottage Grove Road, a main road coming into town, and you guys have a chance to get it right. The developers submitted their application for preliminary plot approval on July 10th. The board has 90 days to approve it, basically. We're in the first 45 days. This board should go by their time frame and not the developer's time frame. You have a lot of time to review the issues that are still out there. You have 3 more board meetings during which the developers could ask for approval of the preliminary plot. You should take the time to make sure that we get that gateway to the west correct and get it right. The staff report has 46 conditions, by my count, of items that the Planning Commission approved the preliminary plot with that need to be resolved. 46. Now, many of those may have been taken care of already, but if they were taken care of in the past few days, and the information that was provided in the past few days to take care of those conditions, none of you would have had time to review it in any detail to make an educated decision as to what was going on. In addition, my clients would like to find out and have time to review what's going on with all the reports that were submitted to satisfy the conditions that were satisfied, and then there's the conditions that haven't been satisfied. This is a moving target at this point. 46 conditions. If you approve this tonight, subject to all those conditions, you're basically approving a preliminary plot. That really isn't, too preliminary. It's way before a preliminary plot stage. So, frankly, I think that the board should hold off on giving preliminary plot approval tonight and should make sure that a lot of the issues that are still open, this moving target, gets a little more solidified before we get to the point of approval. In terms of the subdivision itself, some of the concerns that my clients have, one of them is the parks. The comprehensive plan says that you should have about 0.067, according to the staff report, acres per residential unit. This subdivision currently has a park that's about 0.566 acres. That's enough for 8.5 residential units. There's 108 residential units in this subdivision. That's 100 short. It's sitting out there on Cottage Grove Road. There's no way to get to another park in the area without crossing over Cottage Grove Road. So you can have all of these children in that subdivision with a half-acre park. And besides that, what about the adults and recreational activities in the park for adults? Soccer fields, baseball diamonds, recreational areas. There's nothing. It sits out there on the corner. It may be contiguous to the next farm field to the north, but basically it's the little corner in the south or northeast corner that kind of connects it to anything in terms of village. So how you can put up a subdivision that's that isolated with half-acre parks, which doesn't even come close to me in the comprehensive plan, is just, to me, unbelievable. Bus Road. Bus Road comes in, and we've got a planned job to deal with Bus Road. Dane County Transportation Department, as far as I'm aware, maybe I'm wrong, has not approved any of the roads job there, and there's issues as to whether that makes any sense traffic-wise or just in general. So you've got the Bus Road issue. You've got the density of the subdivision. According to the comprehensive plan, the minimum density of single-family homes in a subdivision is 65%. According to the staff report, this subdivision has 57%. Minimum 65, and this subdivision has 57%. It's below the minimum required. The maximum two-family percentage is 19%. This subdivision, it's 15%. This subdivision has 19%. It has more two-family residences than the comprehensive plan allows. And multifamily, the maximum is 20%, and this subdivision has 23%. On all three metrics, this subdivision fails. Now the staff says that property to the west has some single-family houses on it. And as a result, that's likely to develop into single-family houses. Where's the science on that? I know the property owner that owns property to the west, and he's not likely to sell that or move off that or develop that for a long time. Many of you know who I'm talking about.
it could be years and years before any development goes west. So here we've got a subdivision that sits there, and we're basically saying that, well, it will have the required minimums and maximums, but it may take 10 to 12 years, and it may never get there. So to pass a subdivision that doesn't meet the comprehensive plan for minimums and maximums in terms of single-family, two-family, and multifamily homes, I don't see it. Outlet number 5, there's contingencies and conditions that require certain information about outlet number 5. Some of that may have been taken care of, but again, if it was taken care of in the past few days. And the reports were made available in the packet that was available to this meeting. I don't know how anybody could have read all that information. It's like the health care bill that passed in the Congress a few years ago. Nobody had a chance to read that stack of papers that was this high. Attorney Proctor says that it's been a long process to get here, and it has, and I don't doubt that. But this board has another 45 days before it has to make a decision on this subdivision. I don't think the developers are going to be hurt by making sure that we get this right this time, and we don't go by your timetable and not theirs. In terms of talking with the community, the residents, many of which are my clients, the Plan Commission put out a requirement that they hold an informational meeting with the residents, and the developers did that. However, they scheduled it for last Thursday. The notice that went out was sent out on Friday via mail and was received by the residents in the neighborhood on the 13th or the 14th or 15th. That was Monday or Tuesday. So the notice that was given for the informational meeting was a 2 to 3 day notice. I don't consider that to be a good faith effort to talk with the residents, many of whom are on vacation, unavailable, and so again, it appears that we're trying to meet, that what the developer was trying to do was get that informational meeting in because the Plan Commission put it as a requirement before this board meeting so they could bring this before this board and get this preliminary approval. Given that this is a moving target, given that we already have 46 separate conditions that need to be satisfied, and given that the Plan Commission requested that there be an informational meeting, my clients couldn't even begin to look through all that information before the meeting. It wasn't readily available, and this continues to change. So if this board really wants to have input from residents and citizens, they should allow the process to take a little longer and give them the opportunity to review the materials, get this thing a little more finalized, and let them raise the concerns they have so they can bring those before you guys and have you discuss them. Right now, they don't have that information. Finally, the school district. It is true that many of the residents and concerns were about the school district. I don't think you've had a school district member or superintendent come before you to discuss the issues directly. Now, we can all summarize what we believe the district said and give our third-party input, but until you guys have actually spoken with the officials from the school district, you're not going to know for sure what the issues are. So my suggestion would be that you have somebody like the superintendent come before you guys, and you can ask him the questions you need to ask, get the answers you need to get answered. And again, it's about getting this right, not meeting the developer's timetable. So, in summary, my clients are very concerned about numerous issues with the subdivision itself, the process to get here, and they're concerned that this is still a moving target. They're not asking you to vote no on the preliminary plot. They're just asking you to take the time to get it right. You've got the time to do it. There's still 45 days, that's 3 more board meetings, and given the importance of this subdivision, not just to my residents, many of which back up to the subdivision, but the entrance to Cottage Grove, it just seems to make sense to take the time to get it right here. So that's all.
All right. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you.
Okay. So, anyone else from the public that wants to speak before the board?
I think a developer wants to.
Or developer?
I'd just like to answer a few of the points that were raised, because they weren't all accurate. First of all, when it comes to the school district, the village invited the school district to appear. I've never, ever seen a school district superintendent ever actually appear at a preliminary plat, but the school district, or the village invited them, and in your packet, the village sent a series of questions, and the superintendent responded in writing by email. So I don't know what more official you could have from the superintendent of the school district, and I was quoting basically the email that he sent to you all. So I believe that the village has done everything it can with the school district. As to the parks, the request for the parkland dedication was made by the Parks Committee and by staff. So it was a response to the village, and then a payment, a fee in lieu of is also being paid. But as to what exactly the village wanted at the Park Committee, I wasn't there, but that part that you see is a response to what the Village Park Commission requested, not to actually what we plan to offer. So, and there's a lot that goes into it, as all you know, of generally the Park Commissions likes to see fee in lieu ofs paid so that they can consolidate into one big park or a number of big parks that serve the community, so you don't have a bunch of just small parks that serve little neighborhoods. I assume that's what happened here, but our park responded to that. As to the public information meeting, my understanding is, and there's a lot of people here that can speak to it, that we're the first subdivision plat that's ever been asked to actually hold that information meeting, and we gladly held it. And I think it was pretty productive, actually. We had a good meeting and a good turnout. I know Trustee Mick Conrad was there, and it was a pretty productive meeting. And it was just requested. We got the email out to everybody. And when we were told that some of the residents were going to have an attorney and they may have difficulty making that a meeting, I sent an email out to their attorney, who I was told was going to represent them, Mike Watton, and I offered to meet with them anytime, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday up before today's meeting. And I called him on Friday and I called him on Saturday, I believe. I called him twice. Also after that to see if he wanted to talk or meet. So I think that they've been given ample opportunity to reach out and ask any questions that they had, including all of the public hearings and meetings that have gone on to this day. So again, this is kind of this idea that throwing up an impediment that we just don't have enough time, we just don't have enough time, we don't have enough time. It's not about the time. It's just about kind of keep trying to move the target on the approval. Bus Road, I don't believe it gets any county review at all. Bus Road was reviewed by the village engineer, and everything that happens with Bus Road and those layout of the roads are approved by your professional staff working with us. So it's not as if we just put it out to you as if we drew it the way that we would like it. It was drawn in consultation and with the approval of staff. The percentages as to the number of units and so forth, now that's going to come up even more importantly during zoning, but so far as to the subdivision, the staff has made findings reviewing your comprehensive plan and reviewing our proposal that the percentages and that the proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan. And the staff spends a lot of time on it, and it is, in essence, the arbiter of whether or not it's in compliance. We worked with staff to make sure our request was in compliance, and they came back and stated it was. So it's not as if this just comes out of nowhere, these things, these ideas. I think that was all of the issues raised. So at that point, we would just ask, staff has recommended approval. This has gone through a very significant vetting process. And for those of you who sit on these boards a lot, it may sound like there's a lot of conditions, but you know that all of those engineering issues are issues that just keep coming up and then being dealt with. Like an issue of a request, it was the town chair who requested that there be a chain link fence. So that becomes a condition. We said, sure, we'll put in a fence there. That's not a problem. I would hardly say that that's a moving target as to conditions as that. So we would ask that the board just, reviews the actual process that happened along the way, all the times that people had a chance to comment, the large amount of time staff has put into it in making the recommendations, and the fact that staff has gone through all of our responses and basically stated that we're in compliance with the comprehensive plan and with all of the conditions that were requested of us. Thanks.
I would like an opportunity to respond.
All right.
Any project that was 17 minutes. In terms of the school district, maybe I'm not familiar with the extra documents that were submitted, but the email he talks about was a half-page document with no yes and one sentence answers. That's not the kind of responses that the board would inform the board as to the questions you probably have, and it doesn't give you a chance to ask questions. So a half-page response to a few questions doesn't seem to satisfy at least in my book, doesn't seem to meet the requirements for a well-informed decision. In terms of the informational meeting, it is correct that Attorney Proctor reached out to me over the weekend, and I appreciate that. But again, what was I going to do? Try to rally 10, 15 residents to get together and meet with him? No, there should be a notice with enough time for people to make the planning and to attend the meeting. And frankly, my clients would be more than happy to meet with proper notice. In fact, they're anxious to do that. They just haven't have that opportunity. So if the board doesn't approve the preliminary plot tonight, I'm sure we can arrange for a time when they would graciously meet with Attorney Proctor. But if you pass the preliminary plot tonight, the next phase is going to be it's going to be a pass. And by the way, once you pass the preliminary plot, you're pretty well locked into a substantially, any kind of final plot that's substantially similar to that plot. So you're tying your hands. Bus Road intersection. It intersects with the county road, BB. So I don't know when you're intersecting with the county road, why the county would not be involved in any kind of issues with that. I believe that they have to review it. One of us is wrong and one of us is right. I'm not sure which one it is, frankly, because I haven't researched the issue. But again, it's another issue where we don't have an answer. And we don't have an answer, and we're going to make a decision tonight. And then finally, in compliance, 65% is 65%. The staff may, wave their hands and say that, well, 57 is close to 65 when you think about the fact that in 20 years you might have another residential subdivision next door, and that may then get us to 65 for the whole thing. But in my math class, 65 is 65, and 57 doesn't meet it. And 15 is 15, and 19 is over it. And 23 is over 20. So the staff can say, yeah, we think this is going to happen in the future, but I don't know how they know that, especially given this is Cottage Grove Road, and it's the main intersection coming into town. So that's all I wanted to rebut at this point. So thank you.
Jonathan, we give Aaron an opportunity to speak about the comp plan. And I just want to touch on the schools. I mean, we can't speak to why, they have conflicts or whatever, or why the email is so short, but when the study shows that they're planning for between now and 2035, which gives us 18 more years, between 1,000 and 2,000 students, and this development will generate approximately 75 new students in a 3 to 4 to 5 year development period, that they're just not concerned about it. That's the only thing I can see that's the only thing I can draw from that. Aaron, if you have comments on the comp plan densities.
Yeah, I guess I would answer that. Subdivision boundary is not necessarily a neighborhood. A neighborhood would be a contiguous development area. I would consider the land to the west to eventually be part of this neighborhood, and we have control over what that can be. If we want that to be single-family residence, which we should, because it'll be more interspersed with existing residential than this is, which is basically a box next to residential. We can control that.
Any questions from the board? Nick?
One other item that came up was the stormwater runoff. Can staff address that issue? And
Mike can?
Maybe Mike can address that. And the other thing there's one other question too, just on the county road and the controlled county road, or how that process really works. Maybe you can address that too, Mike.
I'm going to find an open mic. The county road BB changes jurisdiction with the annexation. So where the village limits were proved to become north and south of Cottage Grove Road, it became village jurisdictional operation of Cottage Grove Road. For stormwater management, we have adopted at the village the code from the DNR that's also been vetted by Dane County, added more regulations at the county level that clarify the DNR's regulations, and all the municipalities within Dane County are required to have that as a minimum standard. So as far as rate control, they have to have rate control so that they're not exceeding the pre-development rate. As far as water quality, they're required to have 90% of the total suspended solids. It's a water quality issue, but It sounded like I heard questions regarding how much water is coming through. That's something that will not change because this has defined, while not navigable, it does have defined waterways in it. And they'll be continuing to be used as the discharge locations. And because it's not navigable, they're able to put stormwater management in line with that on the large outlot. So that will actually become a detention. And what folks have been used to from the adjacent neighborhood is that there is no stormwater detention. So that would be a change downstream that they had seen in the past from the larger development to the east. Any more questions?
May I ask one more question, Mike? On Bus Road where it comes in and intersects with Street B, is that going to change? Because it looks to me now that it's kind of, or just how does that work? I mean, you come in, it's like a kind of a lazy alley there.
There's a cemetery there, right?
The cemetery is right adjacent to Bus Road. And what we see as a long-term plan, I think, just looking at planning and comp plan, is that this would actually be a through street with a T intersection at Street B and Bus Road. For now, they'll design it as a curve, as a normal intersection would, but the outer curve will be just for runoff management, and that it'll still be curved but tighter, so that in the future that can be pulled out into a T intersection.
As well as the property to the north being a condition that Bus Road is extended east.
Yeah, when you look at the right-of-way to the north of Bus Road, you can see that there is a potential there to align these two. So without further land dedication on the north levee, but that is a road improvement we want to see to create a better intersection.
While you're up there, could you point out the egress routes in that development to get in and out of that subdivision?
It would be Bus Road, okay, and then Fundamental Way. So Fundamental Way is actually platted to the north.
Okay.
And what you're looking at that's very highlighted here is a driveway. And the long-term plan for that driveway would be to come on to Fundamental Way. So this would just become another intersection without the driveway there, long-term. The other egress route is the bike path. So there's a bike path plan along Fundamental Way, 10-foot wide, and then there's a bike path planned along Cottage Grove Road all the way to the signals at Damascus, which would tie into the bike path that's coming in from the east in front of Coyle South. And so then they'll have a signalized crossing to the middle school going north, and then as you know, there's a bike path continuing up into the next, past the middle school and into the next development. They plan that same type of system here for bikes and pedestrians.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
One question, this may be for you, Aaron. I'm looking at staff recommendation number 8, where it talks about the restriction regarding the wooded lots. And I noticed that it starts with lot 3, and I was wondering why lot 2 wasn't included in there, as lot 2 appears to have quite a few trees on it that are substantial size.
It could be included. I guess I was following, there's kind of a scalloped line there that shows where the more substantial woodlands are. But it could be extended to 2. There's also individual large trees shown on that one.
Then I have a comment. I appreciate the developer making the changes to the covenants. However, when it comes to number 8, I don't see number 8 really being reflected in the changes. And the way it reads now, I don't think it really conforms to section 274-73, which deals with the trees, where it says the subdivider or land divider shall make every effort to protect and retain all existing trees. And I can understand the argument that that is the case with the language that's in the covenants, but it really restricts, I think, the ability of the village to really have say. If someone comes in with a, if someone comes in and they have like 4,000 square feet, that's or 3,000 or whatever, that's listed as the area where they're going to have the home and area around the home, under the covenants, the way it reads now, I don't think we can prevent that as long as it's needed for construction of the home. We would have to go ahead and say, yes, you can take the tree out, which to me doesn't really fit with the requirement in number 8. If we were to approve number 8, I'm thinking, Lee, that would mean a redrafting to really have that provision really change to reflect more what is in number 8, which deals with adding language stating an intention for lots. And I'd like to make an amendment when we get to that point, saying lot 2 instead of lot 3. That lots 2 through 19 and lots 56 to 63 are to remain substantially wooded, which I don't, and then it also stating language stating that the home shall be located on a site in a manner that best protects existing large trees. I know that would put a lot back onto our own staff when those lots come in to pull permits. But if we're concerned about the trees, I think it would be better to go ahead and have some additional language added into the covenants so that the large trees that are out there, if we think that they're worth saving, that maybe the plan will need to be changed somewhat, or maybe the location could be changed. I mean, you could push you could push the house farther back on the lot, which would affect the tree, maybe perhaps having the lot home closer to them. Still meeting our requirements, of course, for our zoning requirements, but maybe moving it up. But my concern really is that the language should reflect more what is in number 8 in the covenants.
Any other questions from trustees?
Could I just speak to that real quickly, just to help out? There was a lot of comments that came from the planning commission, and we drafted the language and worked with Aaron on it to try to get it to the point where it would reflect what the planning commission desired. And I think that if you read those covenants, it's probably more than you've ever done for any subdivision that's come in, and we're happy to do it. We're happy to accept the condition to work with staff to further clarify, to reach the comments that were brought up by Trustee Conrad. We see them as constructive covenants that will allow us to work with staff to address those concerns. I think I mean, we drafted them as close as we could to what we thought was said, and I think that we're one of the few subdivisions, if the only subdivision in the village, that the forester will have to review, when a homeowner is going to take down trees as part of the project. And we're fine with it. It's called Shady Grove, and we're going to protect our trees. So I think that we've really made a big, good faith effort on that, and we're happy to tweak that language some more to address that concern.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Any trustees?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the preliminary plat with the comments that are stated by staff in the report with the following changes. One, on number 8, that instead of lot 3, that be changed to lot 2. And that we also would instruct staff to review the covenants to confirm that the requirements of number 8 are more reflected in the actual covenants that will be recorded.
I'd second that.
Okay.
Are you done with your motion?
Yes.
I'll second it.
All right, we've got a first and a second with the comments that Nick outlined that Lisa's captured for us to approve the preliminary plot for Shady Grove. Any further discussion?
Incorporating not only what Trustee Conrad has said, but also the staff recommendations and conditions.
Yes.
Per the village action report, not the same.
Per the, okay.
Yes. I still second that.
Any further discussion? All right, having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Abstentions? I think that means the motion passes. Motion passes. All right, then we move on to item 7B, discuss and consider the Summit Credit Union for approval for implementation plan for the new headquarters office building located at 1709 Landmark Drive.
Maybe take a couple of minutes, let them get set up
Set
and
up.
let the other group.
We're going to use the screen.
Yeah.
Aaron, if you want to introduce.
Yeah, so we actually have two separate agenda items for Summit. The first one is the precise implementation plan. The second is the certified survey map. Typically, we'll just discuss those together and then vote separately. So we have Peter Tan, who's the design architect from Straying. We also have Jeremy Upler from Summit, if you have any questions on Summit's behalf. And also Bill Dunlap here from JSD, who's the project engineer. But we'll let Peter do his presentation and go from there.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here to hear our presentation tonight. So, sorry. It's not going. Okay, now it works. Apologize.
Sorry, here.
Okay, just, so this is what you're asking for is approval of a PIP, of a plan of development, a PAD. And so, if you recall, we presented this and we had approved for this project in this site, the GDP. And for the most part, the project is consistent with the GDP. This is the site, and the site is right here. The interstate is right here, and N is right here. North is up. And this is the GDP plan for the site, and it's largely consistent with it. The building is right at the northern end of the site, wrapped by parking, with an entrance, the main entrance here. In future development for the site, will be a building and more parking here. Service entrances at that end of the site. Okay. There's a vicinity map showing the properties in the vicinity, and the users in the site. It's a 6-story headquarters building, about 160,000 square feet, underground parking, about 48,000 square feet. The proposed uses for now are office, credit union branch, a drive-up teller, right here on the site, an auditorium, cafeteria, outdoor patio around outside of the outdoor patio, training areas on the second floor of the building, wellness areas on the first floor of the building here, and an outdoor sand volleyball court, 88 underground parking stalls which are accessed on this end of the site, the site slopes from the west to the east, which makes it a great spot here to have a raised loading area and entrance to the parking below. 435 surface stalls, walking paths throughout the site, and outdoor active recreation. Okay. These were just a chart showing the comparison of the existing PO zoning and proposed development zoning. It's all approved at the Plan Commission. The main things that we were asking or proposing for approval was the FAR of the GDP be amended to allow a slightly larger FAR setback, and the GDP would be amended to allow a front setback of 10 feet for this development, mainly because this drive-up teller area is about 11 feet from the property line. And side and rear setbacks, well, that's just because the GDP, it was quite a bit further back than the PO standards. We just wanted to have the GDP be amended to reflect the PO standards. Okay, themes and images for the site. The stormwater management for the site, we'd like to propose something that's really natural on the edges, very indigenous to the upper Midwest. This is the grading and stormwater site plan, and Bill Dunlop here from GSD, he addressed some of the stormwater management on the site.
As Peter said, the site slopes from west to east, and basically this is part of a subdivision that has regional basins in there. And what we have met are the footprint of 10% of the roof area for infiltration. There's also a small area in the front of the building where we have the parking. That area, we couldn't feasibly get it into the regional basin, so we are actually providing some additional TSS treatment in a wet pond in front. It'll also be an amenity in front of the building. And then that will discharge into the infiltration basin, which also has the native plantings, which are part of that basin. And that discharges to the basin that's in the northeast corner of the site. In addition, one of the things that Summit is looking at is working on LEED certification, and we will be putting in basically a cistern to harvest rainwater from the roof so that it can be used for infiltration. We've sized it as a 17,500 gallon unit so that it would capture about the first half inch of a rainfall, and then be reused on site basically for irrigation, and some of that would infiltrate in.
Okay. Thanks, Bill. Themes and images. Again, what we'd like to do is to make this as indigenous as possible to the native landscape, to restore prairie on the site. The infiltration basin would be planted with prairie plants, and also all the landscaping points for shrubs be met by the use of prairie plants, which is used in many municipalities, this approach. So we're asking for that. Just in themes and images of the outdoor gathering spaces, and you can see surrounded by prairie plants. Sand volleyball court, outdoor exercise areas, and this is showing the site landscape plan, and the landscape plan concept shows landscape active recreation areas, outdoor walking paths. There's a walking path that goes around the site here, and as well as around the future development area. Talked about native plantings, and just to give you the sense of the plantings on the site, there's prairie seeding right here, that's the green area. And short grass prairies at the edges of the parking islands for better viewing. Woodland plugs to the north side, that's shade tolerant because it's north of the building. And basically, generally, we have plugs next to the building to have the prairie get established right away versus seeds further the building. So that's, and then the red is a tall grass prairie, is a backdrop for a wildflower mix in the blue areas right in front of the building, more showy plants. So the stormwater retention area has a prairie seed mix. The yellow is just normal lawn seed mix and just a little bit of bluegrass in the patio and around the outdoor recreation area, outdoor volleyball court. For the architecture of the building, in terms of beams and images, that's the summit branch at Rimrock Road, and you can see that's proposing the use of the same silvery black brick that's here, and silver metallic red metal panel that will be consistent with the existing buildings that Summit has. Another building, I think we showed you these images at the GDP level too. A warmer bronze colored brick, which also has some of the metallic look to it, as well as kind of a copper. Actually, this next slide here. And so this gives you a sense of the way the building is. This is the southwest view. The view from the southwest, that'll be like from here. And so you can see the building is has got the brick, the portions of the massing of the building that are tied to the ground are made of brick. Horizontal elements are lighter and they are made of the metal panels. And what we have here, in addition, is a copper paint, metallic paint color. There's an accent right there, and photographs of that. So, and the building it's a modern building, asymmetrical, dynamic. At the same time, it's got the classical composition elements as a base, a shaft, capital. So, and that's the view. This is south view, showing the drive-up teller in front of it. And we worked hard at kind of taking the drive-up teller and making it consistent with the architecture of the building as well. And the southeast perspective view, showing the, this is the pre-function area for the auditorium here, the cafeteria wrapping around the outdoor patio, and a celebration room right here. It's the accent to the end of the building here. Okay. Going around to the northeast, that's the view from the highway from the northeast. As you can see, we've worked hard at screening all the dumpster areas and emergency generator areas. You can see that right here. That's where the truck goes in, and making it part of the whole composition of the building. And northwest view, this facade here is more solid because of this is north, in terms of the north winds in the winter. So this building is designed, because it's a LEED building, designed with energy in mind too. So north facades of the building are a little more solid from an energy efficiency standpoint, as well as in terms of acoustics from the highway as well. But then it begins to kind of have this response to the site. Then it is designed as a four-sided building which responds to its context, and that's the west view, the view that you'd see when you get off the highway, the off ramp here. And these are the elevations of the building. Okay. And the north and east elevations. And then signage, themes and images of signage. The signage will be of a very high quality, professionally done, internally lit. That means that the light is inside the sign itself, and you will kind of know there's a combination of wall signs. This is the branch in West Allis on Greenfield Avenue, wall signs and roof signs. But we feel that an internally lit sign is a much better sign rather than an externally lit sign. Looks much better. So, and then the other one is accenting the top of the building. Okay, these are all images we showed at the GDP level with logos. This is the University Square building, kind of to give a nice accent to the top of the building. We thought that would be really nice. So now that is I'll show you the signage plan for the building. All dimensioned in the package, and you can see the logos that are accenting the top of the building, roof sign, summit, and then there's another smaller sign right over the entrance right here. The sign facing you as you get off the highway on the off ramp. The north side facing the highway, we've got logos and a roof sign right here. So these are all pretty much the same signs as we showed at the GDP level. The east sign facing east on the highway, and then the signage on the drive-up teller, logos on the sign, and roof signs here. So so that covers the our presentation.
Thank you, Peter. Anything else from staff? People a chance to
ask questions.
Well, I was going to give people a chance to sit up here again, but I don't know if you might use the screen again or not.
Oh, okay.
Why is it?
To be Reese. I can go back to. Oh, would you like to just turn off the computer at this point for your deliberation?
Maybe just in case there's questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I'll do is I just put it on the site plan.
Similar to last time, there's both the staff report and the village action report in your packet. The village action report, again, reflects the conditions that were approved both by the Plan Commission and by the ARC. They both unanimous approvals. Go through conditions first for the proposed implementation plan. In this case, the conditions that are listed aren't really action items that the applicant has to take. It's more about recording what are the exceptions that we're permitting through the PUD process, just so you know what you're voting on and so we can remember it down the road exactly what we approved. So the first one, the proposed 6-story, 90-foot building height should be permitted to exceed the 45 and 4-story maximum allowed for the PO zoning district, which is what this would have been zoned if it was not a PUD. We just want to make sure that this is applicable only to this building. Any future buildings on the site would be looked at on a case-by-case basis as far as the height goes. Number 2, given the additional height of the building, the floor area ratio above the maximum allowed shall be permitted. There's also something that was approved at the GDP level. Floor area ratio of 0.5 should be allowed following the construction of the future expansion. 3, signage may be scaled so as to be proportionate with the building and highly visible from the freeway. In doing so, the size of the signage may exceed the maximum allowed per the sign ordinance and the Commerce Park covenants. This was already approved at the GDP level. At this point, we're just saying that any signage in excess of that maximum should not exceed the dimensions that are shown on the submitted drawings. The Plan Commission also added that this is an exception that's being granted for Summit only. If you were to rent space in the building in the future or something like that, we'd have to look at any new signage again at that. Number 4, there's a line in the Commerce Park covenants restricting glazing to 30% of a facade. I think that's anticipating that most of the buildings in the Commerce Park are going to be much lower and smaller than this. This is much taller. I think we want that transparency that the glazing offers, so we kind of waive that regulation. There was a request this time along, mostly driven by the LEED certification process, to limit the parking lot lighting to 0.2 foot candles. We typically look for a minimum of 0.4. Did do some research. There are standards out there that say 0.2 is appropriate for an office type use like this. So we're okay with approving that. Number 6, the native plantings shown on the landscaping plans shall account for the required building foundation and landscaping plants. And 7, the required front street setback shall be reduced to 10 feet, specifically for the drive-through canopy only. And again, the established setback would apply to any future constructions. Engineering conditions as well, if Mike wants to touch on those.
In general, the site plan review for erosion control, we've received the checklist and land disturbance permit for this development, so that'll be processed and when they're ready to go. There were, let's see, just some notes on the demo plan for trees that are noted to be removed for the current shared driveway location in the southern property line on Landmark Drive. They appear to be, but off the property line, so it's just something we need to look at specifically at that location. And we've cleared up the issue on the vacation of the 12-foot wide easement along the right-of-way line at Landmark. They've contacted the fire department based on their input at the planning commission. And we talked about no trucks, so it's a public right-of-way that'll continue there. The project includes reconstruction of the center islands that are out there to make the green space in the center of that cul-de-sac larger. So there's some area where larger trucks would need a mountable curb, and I think that's their plan for the center island.
Correct. There's a mountable curve in there, and what we'll do over time is watch and see if we get any tractor trailers to try to make their way through there. If we have to put some sort of treatment on some of the turf to protect it. But at first, we'll just plant it with the no-mow grass and see how it performs.
And what we will do is we're proposing to put a no truck sign right down here, and hopefully that will work.
There will be maybe you can describe the path, I guess, going around the area that's going to be undeveloped at this time, but that was a limestone path, I believe, for
Correct.
time being.
Well, it's what we're doing around the area that would be developed in the future would be to put in basically a limestone path like we use on various DNR trails to provide a walking trail for the people who use the building. And then as that lot develops, then we could move to more traditional sidewalks if that doesn't suit the need. And there's also a multi-purpose path to the west that may need to be tied in, but that's something that's way in the future.
With their idea on walking paths, we have a walking path, I guess, along the east side of Johnson Health Tech, and that's something I guess we can look at for connectivity in the future. So it's not really a note on their plan, but just note that there's 2 different walking paths out there. The driveway along East Gaston, we're looking for curb returns there, and that to be completed per the comment we had. And then just verify your final public light location. You'll be using Commerce Park take lighting there, so they have the spec on that. I think that's it. We're just saying to construct that Gaston Road, East Gaston Road, curb and gutter 50 feet north of the the inlets that would be at that location. Erosion control, limited comments there, just noting that there'll be a permit for that when they're ready to go with those plan comments completed and ready to go. Had some pen and ink on maybe the inlet locations or notes at that same intersection. And then there was a variance on the foot candles. I think Peter had indicated maybe that in his presentation, it's just a little bit lower lighting standard they're looking for in the PIP. And we have comments on stormwater, which I believe were represented by JSD in their presentation. So that's it for engineering.
So that was for the precise implementation plan, and just to clarify, that's the PUD version of a site plan review, so this is the final approval the board would be granting on the project. Certified survey map had 2 conditions on it. This was approved also unanimously by the Plan Commission. The ARC doesn't act on the CSM. The 2 conditions, number 1, the village shall undertake the process of vacating the .081 acres of right-of-way as shown on the Landmark Drive partial vacation plan, which is part of the packet materials. Number 2, that vacated acreage would be attached to the Summit parcel, then all demolition and construction in that vacated area and the rest of the cul-de-sac right-of-way would be conducted by Summit at their expense. So we would recommend approval of both the PIP and the CSM in 2 separate votes.
Any questions from staff, or from trustees to staff or to Supervisor Summit? Make a motion. All right, I'd make a motion to approve the precision implementation plan for the new headquarters located on 1709 Landmark Drive, Summit Credit Union. Is there a second?
I second it.
And motion and second. Is there any further discussion?
That would be with the conditions in the village.
With the
action.
conditions, yes, I'm sorry. You're right, Aaron. I'm with this. With the conditions outlined by staff.
I second it again.
And Larry seconds it again. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that passes. All right, I'll then make a motion then for the application for Summit Credit Union for approval for the certified survey map for the 4 existing parcels into one located at, again, 1709 Landmark Drive, albeit with the staff comments and requirements. Second to that?
Second.
Second from Jim. All right, it's been motion and second. Is there further discussion on the motion in hand for the certified survey map for Summit? All right, having heard none, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Give it a moment to resettle.
I know, that's how I'm feeling, just all I'm doing is sitting.
All right, now. Yeah, I'm like, oh, I got it. Pack all this wears up.
Nice job, Peter. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right, then we'll move on to item 7-11. This is the Emergency Government Committee report.
Okay, we met on 8/9 at 6:32. There was a quorum. There were no public appearances. We discussed in consideration of prior meeting minutes of June 7th and July 12th. They were approved as written. Then we discussed the 2018 budget. The budget was approved as presented, and the total amount was approximately $1,800. The vote was unanimous. Then we discussed and considered the purchase of a smart TV with web capabilities to replace the existing old box TV that's up there that doesn't have that capability of the web. And after discussion, the committee voted excuse me, unanimously to purchase a TV and a DVD player with appropriate hardware to hang on the wall. And that was approved unanimously. Then we discussed and reviewed plans for the September 16th high-grade full-scale exercise. Jeb Wolf will be looking into getting materials for the table in the EGC meeting room so that we could hook up phones and laptops for command center. And then we discussed that people need web EOC training, and the committee was hoping that a full-time person from the village and the town would be trained, and they also consider a committee member to attend the training. It was noted that Village President Jack Henrich has been trained as a public information officer, and that we wanted updated maps of Cottage Grove Village and town, and they will be provided by state emergency government. And there were no reports from the department reps or other committee members. And future agenda items will and can be submitted to Mike Fonger, our chairperson. Next meeting will be held at 6:30, September 6th, the week before the full-scale exercise at 6:30 in the EGC room in the Emergency Service Building, and we adjourned at 7:30.
All right, thank you. Anything else from any of the other committee members? Matt?
The other thing you brought up twice is the full-scale exercise on the 16th is a Saturday. They expect that to be 8 or 9 hours, so it's going to be an all-day event.
Are we planning to have any type of communication out to the village so they know that vehicles and everything else and the activity around Hydrate is a drill and not something that's actually an emergency?
That's a good idea. Get it on
the
get it on
website.
Facebook and website.
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate.
Maybe a newspaper as well.
And the web UOC training, I did email the county to sign up for that as far as the staff persons in the village. Haven't heard back confirmation yet. I'm actually emailing them as we speak, so to see if there's.
Multitasking.
But that's this Thursday, so.
Okay. All right, then the next committee meeting then would be the Ad Hoc Architectural Review Committee.
Yeah, citizens, Jack and I met, and we saw actually the same presentation that we just saw, and voted unanimously to approve it, approve the plans. Very excited. We also had projector issues, got through them, and so it was obviously you saw the presentation, it was very good. Building looks fantastic, and we're excited about it.
All right, excellent. All right, then we'll move on to Community Development Authority. Nick, I don't know if you want to talk on this, or you want me to run it down?
Go right ahead, John.
All right, I got the agenda here. You can add in where you want. So we met on the 14th of August. Really, the primary focus of the meeting was to have really a good discussion around the planning and pre-development activities for the property north of I-94, some of which is already in the village, some of which is not. So there was, again, a good discussion about the comp plan, continuations. There's some actions out of there for staff to take further and then bring back to the committee. And that really flows right into future agenda items. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. Eric has something to add.
I don't think so. We're working with some of the landowners up there, making them aware of what the process could be for getting that land development ready. It's kind of a family we're working with, so it's...
There's a lot of moving parts. There's annexations, there's Capital Area Regional Planning Commission, approval. There's going to be working with various developers and then also creating a tax increment district up there as well as being discussed. So,
How do landowners feel? Are they positive or neutral or?
Tom Viken is one of the main landowners up there, and I think he'd like to get his land sold. He's in the village already, so he annexed with the idea that it would be developed.
Okay.
The land south of him and north of TT, it's a family that owns it. And, we met with the one that has the power of attorney. It's 5 sisters. We met with one of them and her husband, and explained all the different steps that could be taken. And I think they were interested in hearing more, but they'll have to get the rest of the family in here to talk to us as well. So.
Okay. All right. So no pushback?
No.
Okay.
I'd like to commend Eric for the work he put into preparing for that meeting. We had a timeline that we were able to really look at the entire timeline to go from CARC process clear through getting the land annexed, and the city needs to be annexed, and development, and the costs of doing that, which
How much time are we talking about? Just roughly. With the executive summary.
It depends a little bit. The CARC process, it's usually a couple months to get the application put together. There's a 30-day waiting period for CARC staff to review it, and there's another 30 days before they have a public hearing. And then the DNR has another 30 days to finalize their approval. Annexation can be a little quicker. It depends how complicated it is and how many landowners are involved. But the main waiting period is a 20-day period for the state to review it. And that could happen at the same time as a CARC application, but some landowners like to wait until they know the CARC application is approved. So that's kind of up to them when they want to bring it in. The last step was looking at creating a TIF district, and I don't have it in front of me, but that was another 3 to 4 or 5 month process.
And then the committee also discussed within that framework, once that's set, maybe formalizing more of how staff could then respond to larger development RFPs that are out there, so to kind of give staff more direction that way.
Okay.
And all this is kind of wrapped into Aaron and the committee's plan, master comp plan for the village. So, keeping that in line, again, along the lines of what Mick said, it's really coming together very nicely, I think. So, nice job. All right. Joint Fire Committee. All right, it's my show today. We met on the 14th of August. Primary purpose for this discussion was review and recommend revisions to the agreement that is currently in place with Fire Protection Services. That particular agreement is 20 years old, and certainly there's been a number of changes in the laws and such that really warrant us taking a look at that, and as well as the association working with them in doing so. So that was a good discussion. There's some actions out of that. That'll actually come back. We're going to meet again on the 24th of August to review those items, and then again we'll work with the Fire Protection Services organization to hopefully move forward for that.
John, did you guys talk about who would do whatever drafting or amending needs to be done?
It is going to be primarily the committee's going to do initial stab at it, and then we'll have to pull in yourself and the other attorneys involved. Yeah, and then obviously the Protection Services organization too. So everybody get their crack at it, and you've already seen it, certainly know it well.
Well, actually, yeah, it was around 20 years ago when we did it, so yeah.
I'm not trying to date you or anything, that's for sure.
No, I seem to do that well enough.
You're doing a fine job.
Yeah.
All right, so then we also discussed accepting the applications for some landscaping needs for the building, albeit out of the current budget. This is a cost of less than $400. We'll get volunteer organizations to do that in the fall. And again, it's just to replace some of the dead vegetation in front of the building. It just doesn't look very attractive right now, so we can get that taken care of. And as well as looking to create a couple new offices in the building to better protect fire staff's information. Again, out of the existing budget for 2017, looks like we can work that in. So that was approved as well by the committee. Forrest, anything else to add to that?
You got it. That was it.
All right. Next committee meeting was Flynn Hawk Committee. I don't know who's on that. It's here. Is that?
That would have been Jack, but I don't believe they had a quorum. So.
Okay. All right, and then moving on then, Parks, Rec, and Forestry Committee.
Yes, and, okay, so we discussed amending various sections of Chapter 294, and Attorney Lee Boucher helped us change, basically this ordinance was a little outdated.
Correct.
You want to take it, Sean?
Yep, we just wanted to, we asked to remove the street tree list from the ordinance, just to give us the ability to make it be a working document and not have to come to this board and ask if we want to remove a specific tree and move it from preferred to restricted or whatever. This is basically driven by the lovely Japanese beetle. Linden trees are being attacked pretty hard, and we have 300 in the village and 130 of them are in a specific subdivision. So we just want to be able to better control what trees are going in and make sure that we have diversity without having to come back to you folks every single time. It would be a list that we would remove from the ordinance, but it would be maintained and kept live on the village website for reference, or they can talk to myself or our village forester as well.
Yeah. And we're also eliminating the reference to the tree advisory board, which no longer exists. So.
And the environmental ENAD, I'm not sure, I don't even remember what that stood for, but that's, should have been out a long time ago.
So cleaning up the ordinance. So do we have a motion to vote on that?
Right.
These changes? So we've just outlined the two major points of change for this. I'd like to make a motion to amend the various sections of Chapter 294.
Second.
Okay, so it's been motion and second to make those two changes to the particular ordinance. Is there any further discussion?
And all of the changes are set forth in ordinance 05-217 that's in your packet.
All right. All right, then hearing none, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Is that it for?
Well, we have some excitement. Sean has been, leading the Parks and Recs Department to get as much community involvement as possible. One of the things that he did is got the NFL flag football for fourth graders, and he managed to get 4 teams together, and the result was?
It was less about me doing it, more about being contacted by the Green Bay Packers, but our 4th grade flag football team, so we have 35 kids on August 31st. We'll be traveling to Green Bay to play a scrimmage at the halftime of the Packers-Rams preseason game. We were contacted a couple months ago and asked if we were interested, and we went absolutely. To make a long story short, they're sending a bus down to pick up our kids and all the coaches. Each team gets 4 coaches, and this is kind of cool. One's an offensive coach, one's a defensive coach, one's a ball spotter, and the 4th coach, his job is to just make sure the kids do a Lambeau leap when they score. So that's a pretty cool thing.
Lots of scoring, yeah.
Yeah. So they're going to bus the kids down and back, which they probably won't be many coming back because it is the night before the first day of school. But and also each of 4 to 5 of their family members get tickets to the game as well. So we're super excited about that. I've contacted the Herald. They're going to be doing this story, I believe, on Thursday. We're also going to have photographers at both ends of the field shooting all kinds of pictures. We're going to try and do some Facebook Live stuff from there if we're allowed. And so, yeah, we're pretty excited about it.
Is it too late to sign up for the team? I think
Jordan's gonna get a uniform there. Yeah.
We're checking eligibility list.
Yeah. It's like the 4 in baseball.
Never heard of that.
Yeah.
In 4th grade.
Like the Cuban baseball players.
Yeah.
The Little League World Series. Yeah.
Well, that's great news. Great news, Sean.
Yep.
Oh, that's it? Jim?
Yeah, I'm sorry, that was it.
No, that's
So,
good enough to
Yep.
run it down. All right. The next one is Public Relations Committee. That was, we met on the 16th of August, and primary purpose there was to discuss this particular room and the potential of a room projector improvement plan. That Andy spent a good deal of time kind of doing some research and such, but as committee members discussed it further, we thought that it's probably best that we actually look at something a little more 20th century, 21st century. So we sent Andy off to do some more digging, and give some references from some of the committee members looking at potential of smart boards or smart TVs. Case in point we just saw here tonight was Strang and the whole crew moving around and everything. So we're going to look into that and look at the costs, obviously, and that'll come back if the committee sees fit to this committee, certainly, the board.
So John, maybe multiple locations. that would
Multiple
help.
locations.
We can get maybe we could just always have the packet up there for the audience and things like that, so it's a little bit easier to follow along.
Yep, exactly what we talked about.
And can that come out of the cable money?
Yes.
That's what you're doing? Okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I missed that part.
The other thing that we talked about was that our modular, and again, I'm not a techie guy, is very dated. So if our cable, if that thing goes out, there's only like one in the state, and if the other one in the state is up in the receiving end with Charter, we would be down. So we're having Andy look into what it would cost for upgrading that to current technology. Again, with our cable fund as it is, those are some areas we're looking at. So they'll have multiple iterations. We're going to meet again, hopefully in September, and discuss those, what Andy's found out. All right. Next is Deer Grove EMS Commission. All right, I'll keep talking, unless you want to.
You're doing a
Troy.
great job, John.
All right, so this, we met on August 17th. Obviously, you know, the big thing with the EMS right now is looking for a new director and chief hiring, and so that process is underway. We did outline through some best practices what that process will look like. We currently have, it sounds like about 5 applicants in the queue, at least as of that point. We certainly want more than that, and are looking forward to that. So that process will continue. We'll bring, do some interviews, and then bring in the top, 2 or 3 candidates to a formal all-day session where there'll be some experts brought in, as well as the committee. And
John, Troy, just one other suggestion I thought of after the last meeting. I mentioned maybe expanding the finalist amount just in case someone accepts a different, maybe your top candidate accepts a different position, or you're not able to come to an agreement. The other thing, maybe in the how much longer is the posting still open right now? Yeah. Maybe amend the posting to say positions open until filled, and the purpose of that would be, if you don't get enough applicants, then you don't have to start the whole process over and repost. So that this would allow you, if a really good candidate came in a day late, technically now with the way the posting's written, a current candidate could argue that that person shouldn't be included, and I think you want to, keep as many options open.
Okay.
So,
good suggestions. Thank you. We'll get after that. Other items that were discussed, we did an initial pass at the budget and asked that some folks sharpen the pencils a little bit and look at some things, and made some suggestions as a committee to that. So when we meet next, we'll again review that. We discussed a bit about the consolidation. We've received back the RFPs, a number of RFPs from that. We're looking at the top 2 via the cost structure and looking to bring them in at some point in the near future. We've got to settle on a date yet for that, and then we'll get that invite out to certainly this board to do so, as well as the other various municipalities that may be involved in that. We're also working with the UW on a portion of that consolidation too, as well, taking advantage of graduate student and at certainly minimal or no cost to the district to do some work there as well. So that's moving fast and furious forward. Trying to think. Next commission meeting will be on the 21st of September. Anything else, Troy, that I missed?
You did a good job.
Good? All right. Those are the
Almost like we're
highlights.
both at the same meeting.
All right, then we move on to item 8, reports from village officers. Troy?
No report.
Nick?
One item, tonight we heard from Attorney Proctor, who was here representing Shady Grove. He stated that, if I remember correctly, as far as he knows, Shady Grove's the only preliminary plat applicant that has actually been required to have an informational public meeting. And I don't know, Lee, if that's true or not. Probably not.
I don't think that's true.
But the reality is, as you know, there's been a lot of interest in this preliminary plat, and there has been in some of the other developments that we've seen coming through, especially some of these larger ones. And we do have a section in our municipal code that allows the plan commission or the village board to require a meeting. And so the plan commission did that at its last meeting, required that actually before coming to this board that the applicant have the meeting. I attended the meeting. I think I counted 9 or 10 folks that were there other than staff. There was staff there also. I was just there to observe, and what I saw, I thought it was very informative, and I felt that the people that were there had an opportunity to ask any questions that they wanted to ask of the team that was there, and I felt the questions they asked were answered. And I thought it was everyone I felt walked away with more information or at least having some of their questions answered. And so where I'm heading with this is that it may be beneficial in the future on certain developments, and I frankly tell you, I don't know which ones, but some of the developments that are coming forward have more public interest than others. And there's several ways we can address that. Plan Commission could do what we did last time, just decide, hey, this is an application we think really should have an informational meeting so that the information so things can be addressed and concerns can be brought to the attention of the developer. Or we can do something in our code to require it. And I don't know what the real answer is there. It may be worth, though, asking staff to take a look at that and report back to us on what staff thinks would be appropriate for these situations. But I can tell you on a development like it came forward that we heard tonight, I felt it was very beneficial. And frankly, I think that some of the issues that were brought up, I think the developer did try to address some of them. So I think it was a good outcome.
I think Aaron and I will have a general feel from time to time if it's going to be, I wouldn't say necessarily controversial, but a development that's going to draw interest from neighbors and things like that, and just to probably include that as a condition.
Yeah, prior to the preliminary plat, they pretty much always bring a concept into the Plan Commission. It could be decided at that time, or I think at the Plan Commission we talked about maybe trying to work out some criteria ahead of time that we just apply case by case.
That's all I have.
All right, thanks. Forrest?
No report.
Jim?
No report.
Terry?
No report.
Me? No report. Jack's excused absence. Attorney Boucher?
Troy, I'll turn that over to you. Troy had spoken to me about looking at our emergency government ordinance, and then our understanding was that the town was going to be looking at theirs at the same time, but when I asked about that, we found out that wasn't quite the case, so they're actually talking about it tonight and making a decision one way or the other, so we're going to hold off on doing anything until we get some feedback from them.
Okay. Great.
And I just want to expand on and Troy, I mentioned this to you, as far as the village staff for just general training for emergencies. Myself, I've been part of 2 that were federally declared disasters by FEMA at a previous position, and I've taken the national incident management training, and then our department head leadership has as well, and they have their staff prepared. So our village staff is ready, as far as that's concerned. So
Hopefully never has to.
right.
All right, anything else, Matt?
Well, yeah, it's fine.
It's your turn.
Well, I have on there I was asked to do some research on the cable fund, and good news is the auditors, from their standpoint, we can be just about as flexible as we want to be. We actually could, and some communities have, dissolved their cable funds altogether. We would, of course, have to we would have to create a new fund within the general fund budget for those purposes. But on top of that, we would need to amend that resolution that I had sent you all to commit the funds for a certain purpose. I was gonna make a recommendation to the finance committee, who will review this first and bring it back to the board, but likely commit them to our Fund 410, which is our capital fund, so that those would be for one-time purchases. So, because we wouldn't want to just use all those available funds right away for operational. You'd want to use reserves for one-time capital. And then the other recommendation from the auditors was to ask Lee to review any potential franchise agreement, because they're just saying from their perspective we could do this, but if there is some agreement out there that restricts the use of the franchise fees that we're not aware of, we just want to make sure that Lee looks into that.
Well, what we've been able to find at this point is it does not appear that there is anything in a franchise agreement that would keep us from doing this, but Lisa and Deb have contacted Charter to say, okay, what agreement do you have, make sure that we talk with them,
So we're not quite as handcuffed as we initially thought we were last meeting.
Right, and this was, right, and the board from 2015 amended this, and it didn't come up with the auditors at that time, so we weren't aware of that flexibility, but it's, good news that we are, because a normal year, if the cable fund doesn't do any specific project, it's about $16,000. We're receiving about $48,000 a year for cable franchise fees, and that's increasing that reserve every year. So if we can get that into the capital fund for one-time purchases, get it approved as part of the five-year financial management plan, I think that would be a good thing. So, and that will be part of the agenda on August 29th, a week from Tuesday, is the Finance Committee meeting.
What time is that, Matt?
5:30 here, yeah. And the main purpose of that will be to review the financial management plan that was approved last year. But of course, some of the items that were in last year's plan to be part of this year's budget that weren't approved get pushed back to get shifted to for 2018, and then we also need to extend it a year down the line. So that's what the amendment to that plan will be. And then just a general comment on the larger development projects that were reviewed tonight.
I have a question on that.
Yep.
What are we looking at for total fund money right now? I mean, what's in that?
For the capital fund?
Right.
$360,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Conditions really shouldn't be looked at as a negative. For instance, the Summit Credit Union building had approximately 30 conditions. So I wouldn't look at those as negatives. Staff spends a lot of time reviewing these, and there's a lot that when you start going category by category, from erosion to the streets to lighting, I mean, that's just kind of, it's natural, and I mean, I appreciate the detail that Mike and Aaron go through on those. So anyway, I wouldn't look at those as a negative, and that's all I have.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Aaron?
Sean and JJ and I were all invited to the kickoff meeting, the planning and design of the bike trail connection to Madison. That'll be happening this Thursday, so that's exciting.
All right. They have actually a timetable?
Find out on Thursday.
When is the meeting?
Thursday.
Thursday, this Thursday?
This Thursday.
Oh,
So I'll let you know more when we do.
okay. Get in touch. I'd like to.
Great.
Would like to go to that.
Thanks, Aaron. That's exciting news. We're actually getting a planning stage of that. Chief? Anything?
We arrested the drive-by shooting guy last week and had him charged in Dane County. Today I think he was charged, but he's the one that did the drive-by shooting on Crawford Drive, and he also did one in Stoughton, so 10,000 bail on him, and we'll see how long he stays in jail. But it's good to see someone arrested and be held accountable for it. He fired into a residence that was occupied. And then we identified the two different groups of juveniles that did the damage to Taylor Prairie, where they broke out numerous windows, and we have contacted those kids, referred them to juvenile authorities, and we also arrested the graffiti artist at Cottage Grove Elementary, and they're also being referred to juvenile authorities. And it's our recommendation that the school districts seek restitution for the damages.
Absolutely. All right. Sean or JJ, you guys, I mean, as long as you're here, might as well give you a shot. All right, then we move on to item 9, communications and miscellaneous business, excuse me. And the first item A is consider approval of vouchers.
Move to approve vouchers.
Okay, it's been
Second.
all right, first and second to approve the vouchers as provided in the packet. Any further discussion or questions? All right, having heard none, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion passes. All right, Lisa, any correspondence?
No.
Okay.
All right, then item 9C, future agenda items. Anybody have anything burning after? We'll have the usual suspects certainly moving through, but, all right. Then we will move on to item 10, the closed session. The Village of Cottage Grove Village Board will enter in a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public property, investing in public funds, conducting other specified business wherever competitive and/or bargaining reasons require that the closed session negotiate terms of property development in TID number 6 by Horizon Development Group, and negotiate the terms of potential development in Commerce Park, and finally negotiations on 308 North Main Street and the former lift station on Vilas Road.
Point of order.
What's that?
Point of order on this, is TID 6 by Horizon Development being removed from that?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, they're,
From the closed session?
they would not be, I mean, the board can, I guess Lee can speak to the proposal. The proposal could be discussed. They're not present.
Well, I think the, based on this, Mick raised a question about this, and the intent tonight is not to really discuss Horizon. They have been told that they need to make a public presentation at the next meeting, and then if the board chooses to go into closed session to discuss whatever it is that they've talked about, you can certainly do that. But tonight isn't intended necessarily to be for any consideration of that.
I was just suggesting, Nick, that the board could, since it's been an ongoing thing, the board could discuss their position on negotiating or whatever with them. That was my thought.
I would suggest that we either vote on these separately or we remove Horizon from the agenda item.
I'd suggest that we just remove Horizon from the agenda item. And then that way, with the understanding that materials that you've been provided, unless they supplement them, we'd like you to have for next time, I assume. I think that's when you would get invited them, right?
Yeah, and that next meeting is September 7th. It's a Thursday.
Okay, so the closed session will not include any discussion related to the Horizon Development Group. Thank you, Nick.
Do we need a motion to amend that?
Yeah, why don't we, I mean, I would just like the record, I think that it would be helpful for the record to reflect the fact that I can say it and then someone can make the motion that.
Nick already said it. He just has to say motion.
Okay.
I said.
Is that all right, Nick?
Yeah. Yes, that's fine.
All right. We have a motion and a second to remove the discussion of TID 6 by Horizon Development Group from the closed session. Any discussion? All right, having heard none, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstain? All right. Roll call for closed session then. Troy?
Aye.
Nick?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, we're in closed session now.